First of all, I wanted to thank folks again for yesterday. Appreciated Ben's time. Appreciated a lot of folks that are here hopping on then and being part of the conversation, asking questions, and really just kind of out there showing support and being willing to be part of the conversation. And definitely appreciate how the conversation went. I'd say that Ben and I chatted beforehand, and we were both kind of up in the air as to how things would go, and I think things in general went really, really well. Like I said, I also left feeling pretty confident that that Ben's probably in a spot where he's going to feel comfortable having more talks like that in the future, which is great. I mean, I feel like I gained an additional perspective for Ben's approach, just kind of hearing him talk yesterday. And I think it's good. I think him being willing to be candid, and then what it kind of gives the rest of the DAO is the ability to say, okay, well, if this is the situation, what can we do to move forward? And I feel like I've got a better understanding of what we could potentially do or what approaches we could take than I ever have. So definitely appreciate that yesterday. So all right, to hop down into the deck. So we've got a couple items up front. So CodeHawk's audit competition for seed gauge is completed, and I put the word in remediations in. I probably should have changed this to judging before I sent this out. A couple of things I noticed that I probably would have changed if I had sent this out today as opposed to yesterday, but that's just how it always goes. But anyway, we were past the major portion of the competition, so we're kind of into the final stages with the CodeHawks competition, and moving right along with that. And then the audit of wstETH is underway, so that's good to hear that that's moving forward. And then we already talked a little bit about the class that happened yesterday. Anything else to add from the group for these big items?
Yeah, can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, like Rex said, the audit is complete and the remediations have finished yesterday. So
Nice.
currently there is a 48-hour dispute
You mean the
period.
judging finished yesterday?
Yes. And then there's a
Not the
40-hour
remediations.
Yeah, apologies. 40-hour dispute period in which auditors can, let's say their issue was considered invalid, they can make their case, or as well as change their severity. Not sure if anyone took a look at the results, but it seems like there were 6 unique issues in total, 4 of which was medium and 2 of which were low. But not sure what the final numbers will be after the 48-hour completion period. But once that's done, can probably go on and work on their mediations.
So, Brina, this is probably as good a time to kind of ask the question as any, and I asked this not knowing the answer, but genuinely interested to learn. So, the judging component seems new. Could you guys help us understand what exactly that is in terms of process and how that kind of fits into like this, the overall CodeHawks approach?
Sure. Yeah, it seems a little bit obvious in retrospect, but we didn't include it in the previous Gantt charts. But the judging phase is simply an opportunity for the judges of the competition who determine have ultimate say over the the validity and the severity of different issues, which determine how much the auditors are paid individually, happens after the audit contest is over. And so after the audit contest was over, maybe a week and a half ago now, we could see all the reports, but there were a couple hundred, and not really the best use of our time or Breen's time to filter through all of those ourselves when that's what the judge did over the last week and a half to determine which ones were valid, and
Gotcha.
obviously use different Beanstalk contributors as a reference when helping determine which ones are valid and how severe they are. So
Gotcha.
that's the reason that remediations of the reports didn't happen immediately after the conclusion of the audit. So lesson learned, and that's probably how most of these will go moving forward.
Yeah, and that does make a ton of sense. I mean, I hadn't thought about it either, but as you explain it, I think, okay, when you're in a white hat competition, you're going to have folks of varying levels of, skill and experience putting these items in, and you have somebody like me that I'm going to say doesn't know what they're doing, but maybe trying to help and may find things that aren't necessarily of extreme concern. You want a judge to be able to say, okay, we see that, but we think that's low severity or whatever, to be able to cull that a little bit and give us the best feedback possible. So no, that's good to understand.
Yeah, and we have firsthand experience doing that with the immunified bug reports. As high value as that has been, there's also been a lot of nonsense reports, and it certainly does take some time to determine that that's the case. So actually, part of the immunified BIP, I think it was BIP 41, actually funds like a subscription plan with Immunify to have them do a lot of that work, which is great. But anyway, only somewhat related to this audit stuff.
Interesting. Okay. All right. We'll jump down into projects and initiatives. So this is another slide that I wish I had actually updated after. I wish I had sent this before the class yesterday, because there are probably a couple items that I would put on it, because I know that there are things that have come up like during the talk yesterday and since then. So this has not changed a whole lot since the last meeting, with the exception of, so if anybody's paying attention in terms of changes, so Secure Beanstalk has gone from bottom of the funnel down into the actual set of projects that are currently underway. Things that there are a couple things that I would add to this that had come from the discussion yesterday, and the big one, and it's something that I think Tyler B mentioned too, was the idea of looking at at some new approach or some type of revival of the root token. And I know that, as we talked about it yesterday, obviously there's a lot of questions about what exactly the state of the root group is, and I think there's that's a completely different discussion than what we want to focus on here. But the message that the group heard, and something that kind of I think sparked a lot of people's interest, mine included, is that there's still utility for that wrapped silo position, and there's still an opportunity there. And if there was a way to figure that out somehow, either through the existing root infrastructure or potentially through some other project that achieves the same goal, that might be something worth pursuing. So I'm going to, at very least, add that to this information. I do get the impression that there's a real desire to try to figure that out. So, Guy may be able to be talking about, I don't know if it warrants an RFC or something along those lines, but yeah, there's certain, that's something that I think we at least want to have on our radar. Other than that, I don't think there's been a lot of movement. Oh yeah, I think I accidentally wrote hyperactive instead of hypernative. So sorry, there's a typo there, but that should say hypernative. And Guy, man, and I don't want to put you in too tough a spot, but I feel like there's been movement there, and that's why I moved it down to the bottom of the funnel, right? Did I see some additional communication recently?
You're not putting me in a tough spot at all. I mean, at first I wanted to comment on one of the new ones that appeared here. It's the stock burn for unripe assets.
Mhm.
I believe that Pizza Man posted sort of an idea, sharing the idea
Yes.
behind that in the Beanstalk Ideas channel a week or two ago, and I think it's pretty interesting. I was talking with him and about potentially proposing some sort of temp check proposal to determine whether that's of interest to the DAO, given that it would require some development. If the DAO is interested in it, better to get started on that sooner rather than later. So hopefully some sort of proposal to sort of gauge interest about that can go up in the near future. On the hypernative front, I don't really have much to add on that front, other than the goal remains to propose that alongside the gauge system.
Gotcha. Yeah. So in
Given the friction that has been involved in passing BIPs, feel like it makes sense to try to propose them at around the same time where possible.
I agree with that. Completely agreed. And yeah, so in Rex's little world, in the world of this slide, so next time we see this slide, we'll pull the stock burn for unripe assets down to the top of the funnel, because that's to kind of, I know there are a lot of folks that probably aren't familiar. This is a funnel chart is a very like traditional project management or project selection tool. And I admittedly, I know that I'm probably one of the older folks in this crowd, and so there are folks that might not be familiar with kind of how these charts work, but like how things move through the funnel is kind of interesting, and admittedly, it's a little subjective for everyone here to understand. What the way that I see this is basically, I think I've explained it before. The stuff that's kind of just floating out in the ether that we're all kind of chatting about is above the funnel. But once we start to say, okay, hey, we're going to start to do some work on this, whatever the concept is or whatever the project is, to try to figure out what a potential path forward is, that's when I'm pulling stuff out down to the top of the funnel. And so, yeah, we'll pull stock burn from unripe assets down, and we'll add something about an ERC20 wrapper for silo deposits, and I'll put root in there as well, just as a reference point. Add that for next time around. Okay, the drop down into seed gauge. So we've already talked about it a little bit. Breen and Guy mentioned that we've added this judging phase into the Gantt, and Guy, you said it. I agree. In retrospect, it makes a lot of sense, and it'll be included for future items too. And actually, we'll chat a little bit more down here for other projects. But yeah, pushed out the timeline just a little bit to make accommodations for that judging phase. But it does sound like since we're really close to the end of this week, the week of April 1st, sounds like that process is pretty much moving forward from here pretty well on time, and looks like the rest of the timeline probably falls together pretty well. Guy or Breen, you have anything to add?
I would only add that I take it some people are excited, but as far as when this ships, it really only needs to happen at some point before the wrapped wstETH work that depends on it. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no rush as far as making any changes based on the audit.
Gotcha.
And I guess we'll talk about the wstETH thing on the next slide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good transition. So a little bit more movement in terms of the wrapped wstETH migration. Had some changes here, some additional weeks for some of the existing items, but then pulling in the CodeHawks audit, pulling that in a week. So overall, I don't think there was any change in terms of the target deployment. just some shifting here. So, and then the addition of the judging phase for that as well. Yeah, Guy, I mean, do you want to add anything here as we're talking about this?
I don't think so, other than the audit started on Monday.
Yeah.
And it
Perfect.
seems like there are a lot of the same, and this is sort of anecdotal evidence based on reading people's Discord usernames, but it seems that there will be a fair amount of participation from people who audited the gauge system as well, which is always good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, to me, that's a positive sign, because it feels like we're building a group of white hats that know the code base better and better over time. So yeah, that seems like a good development. Cool. All right. Down into multi-flow, I think this is kind of just humming along. No, I don't think there were any changes just moving forward in the timeline, or in the interim period we've talked about before, where since the CodeHawks crew is working on wstETH, fortunately that resource is in use right now, so we're in that waiting period for multi-flow, and until then we'll be in the holding pattern. Anything to add, Guy?
Nope.
All right. Gen convert part 1. So again, I don't think we've got any changes in terms of the timeline or pieces. Pizza Man, anything you want to add on this?
No, I think everything is pretty much going as planned here. Maybe worth noting, we did some work to switch away from hard hat. Mostly Breen did the work to Forge and Foundry. So I've been kind of getting up to speed on that. And it's just a little bit faster theoretically to write tests and stuff with that. So it's been a great learning experience, and hopefully, it'll make development a little bit faster going forwards. But as of now, there's a bit of a ramp up period just to get tests and stuff working in that different framework.
Cool. Good to hear. Okay. H1 upgrade package. So I felt bad. I got a message from Deadman here. Actually, I'm going to pull it up. Unfortunately, because of the time zones, Deadman could not make it to this meeting. And like I said, I always feel bad when someone can't. It's tough to juggle everything with everybody kind of being around the world. We've got a bigger and bigger network of contributors, and just tough to catch everyone. So I'm going to read Deadman's message. Just says, unfortunately, due to time zone issues, won't be able to make the DAO meeting. If anything comes up to review in the miscellaneous improvements BIP, review is well underway, and the chop rate change is also included in it. I'm now starting the component deployment scripts to have them ready for the wstETH well coming up, and looking forward to hear the recording of the DAO meeting. So, yes, just some minor additions from Deadman, and again, something you'll notice in the chart is we did add the judging weekend here as well. Anything to add, Guy?
Nothing on this end.
Okay. So these last two, this was a little bit of a change. So Funder, who I don't think I saw them on, because they're, again, very different time zone. Let me make sure that they're not on. No, Funder isn't on. So yeah, Funder couldn't make it, but up to this point, or up to very recently, Funder had been working on Tractor, and I think I misspoke when I first talked about it. Funder has been working on that essentially since the new year. So since 2024 started, but after some discussions, and Guy, again, definitely take any additional color you have here, but talking with Funder, there's been a strong desire to kind of shift gears and focus on secure Beanstalk instead, with the idea that as these more intricate components for generalized convert and for seed gauge and the wstETH well, and then eventually more permissionless wells, as those components come together, there's more and more desire, or more and more concern about potential security issues. So Funder's been redirected a little bit to focus instead on secure Beanstalk. So just so everybody's aware, Tractor is a little bit on the back burner for now. That is not a permanent change, but yeah, just a rearrangement of priorities for the sake of security. So, anything you want to add on that, Guy?
Yeah, just that it's not ripped to Tractor, but it is kind of funny that this has happened 2 or 3 times now, and feels like we've been talking about Tractor for years at this point. But I mean, the nature of Beanstalk is that every time it's upgraded, there's additional risk that is assumed, and the sooner that this change can be implemented properly, all things else considered, would be better for Beanstalk security. So it's a little bit of a short rationale, but I think it sort of speaks for itself. I'm happy to answer any other questions on that front. I think that it also helped that Funder was particularly excited about this project.
So if everybody notices, I mean, obviously even the Gantt chart. So this Gantt chart is, I think I just copy and pasted the Gantt chart from the H1 upgrade package, just for the sake of having something here. But this is obviously not correct at all. Funder is working on a timeline for this as well. So by the time we get to the next DAO meeting, we'll have something here with a definitive timeline to go along with it. So yeah, just a little bit of a on hold when it comes to what this will look like. But yeah, just so everyone's aware, this is where Funder is focusing their time. And then Tractor, to kind of speak to that, this Gantt is actually, at least it is correct in terms of the list of tasks. So, if anybody's interested in some of those tasks that are underneath the Tractor program, they are listed here. The general timelines are probably about right in terms of their duration, but obviously since Funder is going to be working on secure Beanstalk, this stuff is going to move around. So more to come on that, but just so everybody is aware that we are, obviously still tracking this information too, and we'll continue to publish it. And once we get secure Beanstalk nailed down in terms of a timeline, we'll probably be able to update Tractor as well to make sure that everybody's just aware of kind of how things are flowing. Well, that's it for the main slides. Moving pretty fast, but we're getting a pretty good rhythm when it comes to what's going on in these meetings anyway. So I just wanted to kind of open up the floor a little bit and see if anybody else had anything to add or any questions, or anything even additional from yesterday that wanted to talk about, or just open the floor up. You can also drop something in the chat too. I'm trying to keep an eye out on both. So with the possibility of giving folks just an extra minute to drop items in or to think of any questions if they have them. Something that I took away yesterday that I keep thinking about, and actually have had some discussions with other folks here over the last week or so. There's and bigger discussions for longer periods of time. A lot of folks have either chatted with me or asked in one of the channels specifically about things like business development. And, it was really interesting to hear Ben's perspective yesterday about that and get a good idea for I'm going to say his level of interest, which I'm also going to say sounds like it is very low, which is okay. And I would want to be clear, at least in terms of my opinion. I think it's perfectly reasonable if someone like Ben says, hey, I love the modeling portion, I love the economics, I love the theory behind this, but I don't love doing things like business development. And I get that, and I hear it loud and clear. I think what that should communicate to us as a DAO, though, is that if that is something that we are interested in, then we should be thinking about it actively. To probably put my thoughts into a little bit better frame, personally, I view Beanstalk as something like an economy rather than a product. And so up to this point, we've obviously we've had some internal marketing folks, we've had external, marketing contractors, probably seen a little bit more success with internal folks than external folks, but it's always been kind of hard to determine why. And I think part of the fundamental issue is that it's hard to create a biz dev plan or a marketing campaign for an economy. It's easier to do it for a product. And again, in a lot of conversations over the last week or so, I think that as wells and as permissionless well implementation gets closer, I do think that there are going to be more opportunities for folks to start to lean into developing relationships with outside groups and saying, hey, Basin is a platform where you can create some really unique pairs and really unique opportunities to trade tokens against others and build these permissionless liquidity pools. And I do think that there is room for someone or a group of people to potentially take that on more formally. And I guess I'd want to encourage folks that are in the DAO or listening to this meeting to think about what that might look like. I obviously I'm not making any decisions here, but I think that there's a place for people to think about it. So anyway, just obviously me kind of just giving my opinion, but I do think it's something that we should be thinking about, because it won't be long until we do have a very specific potential product to offer outside groups. So just something for us to be considering. All right, I don't see.
I think Kobe Bain dropped a question in the chat section of the Barnyard Voice channel.
In the chat section of the Barnyard. All right, let me pull that up. Oh, there it is. Okay. What are the possibilities of resuming a regular class schedule moving forward? Once a month, potentially. Love the conversation yesterday. And first off, want to definitely echo what you said there at the end. It really was a great time, great discussion, really, really good. And again, I'll say I can't speak too much for Ben, but I know that, talking with him afterwards felt good about, how everything went. And, I think we kind of both walked away feeling pretty good. As for a regular class schedule, I can't speak for Ben. He's really the linchpin for anything like that. I'm, just a facilitator or somebody that tries to help make things happen. But I get the impression that is at least something that he would be open to, just based on conversation. So I do think that there's room for us to say, hey, would you be willing to get together once a month? we're having these meetings probably twice a month, these DAO meetings, to just give project updates and keep in touch with the community. It would be awesome if on one of the off weeks, if we could have something else. I think that'd be fantastic. And I don't get the impression that Ben would be necessarily opposed to that. Again, don't want to speak too much for him, but yeah, I think that's a reasonable ask. And I guess what I would say to this group is that I think now, even just based on the conversation yesterday, I feel like we may be in a better position to understand what Ben feels like he has to offer, and like where he feels like his place is in the DAO. And again, I think that is different than what some people imagine it has been before, or I'm sure some people, it's different than what they imagine that they think it should be. But getting to a place where everybody has at least a common understanding of what everyone else is trying to do, I think is a good step forward. And I know that Ben loves Beanstalk, and he loves to talk about it, and loves to spread the good word of what we're trying to do here. And so yeah, I think it's a reasonable ask to say, hey, what do you think about once a month? So I will be happy to I'll be happy to communicate that to him personally to see if there'd be interest in doing something regular. All right. I don't see anything else in the Barnyard chat, and I don't see anything in general. So we'll give one last call for folks if they have any questions or thoughts. Speak now or temporarily hold your peace. Okay, hearing and seeing nothing. Man, this is great. 38 minutes, not bad at all. So yeah, we will. So this is published. We're good to go. I'll put this out on Twitter here over the next day or so. We'll get the recordings up from yesterday and from today. Shout out again to Canadian Bennett as always for taking care of that. And yeah, we will. We'll see everybody. I think our next meeting, because I'm actually out of the area. I think our next meeting is the 23rd. In fact, I'm almost certain. So we will plan to talk with everybody on the 23rd, if not before. Thanks, everybody.